very much trauma-based mind control films based on, like, V for Vendetta, based on Aleister Crowley's philosophy wrapped up in Adam Weishaupt's social structure. So we're talking about the Illuminati meets, black magic. And their corporate logo, Village Roadshow, is 6 Vs. So now you're back to the same 6 and 6, instead of having a 6 and 6, because they always got to change it up just a little bit, but you'll see that they're always consistent. And the final one that I like to point out is Phoenix picture, because Phoenix is always very involved in this storyline. The death and resurrection of the Phoenix is in Lawrence, Kansas, where I live. The town is burning on the side of the police cars with the Phoenix rising up out of the ashes, and we have a large Egyptian Masonic temple right downtown. Phoenix Pictures, they put out films like The Sixth Day with Arnold Schwarzenegger on human cloning, or Apt Pupil by Stephen King about Nazi worship, or Holes in compilation with Walt Disney about child labor camps. And, of course, this starring Sigourney Weaver and Arnold Schwarzenegger and Stephen King. And their corporate logo shows the Phoenix, a friction match being struck on the ground. Now, when you look friction match up in the dictionary, once again, look up Lucifer, you'll see that the second definition after Venus is a friction match. So now we've got Lucifer Pictures putting out films about Nazi worship, human cloning, and child labor camps. So, yeah, there's definitely a code there to be seen.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I know the latest thing that's hit the news is this Gabriel Giffords shooting, and that whole thing just totally smacks of a Manchurian Candidate or mind control. Have you looked into that one?
I have been digging around in that one. There's a deeper story there for sure. Mm-hmm. And what we saw, one of the strangest things of the whole story was that Gabriel Giffords' YouTube site had been subscribed to Jared Lee Loughner's YouTube site at least 2 days prior to the shooting, not after, Mm-hmm. So this is bizarre, because she only had 2 subscriptions on her site. One was Senator Ike someone, and the other one was Jared Lee Loughner. And I don't know if you've ever seen Jared's videos, but they're pathetic.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen him, but I just looked at his eyes, and he's just like nobody home there. He's a very disturbed individual.
Well, he looks a lot like Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck features in my Anna Nicole Brittany and Mind Control film, so he's got his own spot in this story. But when I started to look to purposes for why this man or boy, whatever Loughner would be considered, would go down there and shoot 20 people as he did, I started to find connections. Many people were saying, well, he's a Satanist Jew, like Tex Mars at Power Prophecy, because he is Jewish. Loughner was Jewish, and so was Gabriel Giffords. But they were trying to claim him being a Satanist because in his backyard he had this altar. And this was the most pathetic satanic altar, if there ever was one, which was a dime store skull, a plastic skull sitting in a bowl with some apple peels and orange peels. And, boy, if you're worshiping Satan, you're doing a lousy job. But the truth is that it does fit perfectly with another cult that is known as the Santa Muerta, or the death cult, the divine death, holy death. And when we start to find out that Giffords and Judge Roll were both standing in between the drug money confiscation and its path to the military-industrial complex or the secret government, this could be a very good explanation as to why they were shot. So if we took into account that Gabriel Giffords and Judge Roll were stopping the drug money from making it to the secret government, then they would bring out someone like Jared Lee Loughner, who perhaps was a member of the Santa Muerta cult, which, of course, is run on drug money as well in a lot of ways. So that was one potential outcome or reasoning behind it. The other was the curious fact that Gabriel Giffords' husband, Mark Kelly, is the pilot for Space Shuttle Mission 134, which is going to launch very soon. 134 is set up to send the alpha magnetic spectrometer, which is a device to look into the anti-universe that came from CERN. And they're launching that up with the STS-134, and Gifford's husband is the pilot. Along with that is going up is Robonaut 2, which is a first robotic takeover of our planet. Now we're going to have this overlord of a robot up there as well. He has no legs, so maybe he can't do too much damage, but they've built this whole robotic station for him up there, and he will be a permanent asset of the International Space Station, which it kind of bounces into the whole Battlestar Galactica fears and the idea of the Cylons. And lastly, they're putting up new shields on the space station. And this is curious as well, because some people are predicting or promoting the idea that this is being done due to the incoming body, be it Planet X or Nibiru, that they need new shielding up on the space station. So there were people thinking, and I've definitely questioned myself, whether or not the attack on Gabrielle Giffords wasn't more a threat to Mark Kelly, her husband, the astronaut, than it was to Gabrielle Giffords herself. Perhaps there was something more going on in this story, and they had to make him go. Now, the reason this gets even more curious is how many remember Lisa Nowak? Do you remember?
No.
Okay, Lisa Nowak, doctor, or PhD, with children, couple of children, loving husband, space shuttle astronaut, launches up into space on STS-121. Well, guess who's the pilot? Gabrielle Giffords' husband, Mark Kelly. Well, she returns from this flight and goes to Houston, Texas, and the next thing you know, she's strapping on a diaper, grabbing herself some implements of destruction, some rubber tubing, pepper spray, a knife, and she puts on a diaper and drives from Houston, Texas to Orlando, Florida to abduct another astronaut female at the airport because she had sex with another astronaut who's actually only been in space one time as far as I could tell. And Lisa Nowak herself said that she did not have a romantic relationship with this guy. And yet that was what the media told us. Oh, well, she went to go capture the woman because she was under duress about their relationship. But she claimed it straight on the news that there was no, they were more than friends but less than lovers, right? And so now we've got this seeming mind control situation again with Lisa Nowak strapping on diapers trying to abduct people. This is like out of the movie Species, and I'm wondering what is going on in these space shuttle flights, and why is it not so bizarre to everyone when you look at Lisa Nowak's mugshot compared to her doctor or space shuttle pictures? This is a different woman. And the combining factor in these two stories, of course, is Gabrielle Giffords' husband, Mark Kelly. So pretty bizarre.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. I know you've got a lot of information. You've done a lot of work on the moon bombing, and I was reading here about your extraterrestrial capitals, Astana, Dubai, and was it Canberra? Or I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but
Canberra.
Canberra.
I've been scolded.
Oh, okay. So what's up with that situation?
Well, when you start to realize that each of our G20 nations are actually extraterrestrial, by that I mean they all launch into space. So India and Kazakhstan, America, all the G20 nations actually are now space-based nations. What is really bizarre and what's going on, okay, when we look to the crafting of Washington, D.C., and L'Enfant in Washington getting together to put magic sigils into the street plans of D.C. Now, this took a lot of effort, a lot of work, and it really screwed up the whole driving around thing there in D.C.
Yeah.
But they got their pentagrams and their pyramids all in there and everything else. And so this is something that the elite do because they do practice magic. And, so as I started to notice the new capitals going up, and what we're looking at, say, with Astana, when you look to it, it is the exact seal of King Solomon that he used to use to bind spirits. So we start looking back to Freemasonry again, and Freemasonry is all wrapped around King Solomon. Every Masonic temple is Solomon's temple, and you pretend to be King Solomon when you're the worshipful master. And Solomon was a worshiper of certain gods like Shamash or Ashtar or Ishtar, and he would use his magic to bring about demons and then control them with these sigils. Well, his main sigil to bind spirits is actually the street plan of Astana. It's also exactly the Bicentennial Mall in Nashville, and these are set up as magical sigils to bind spirits. So when you get to Astana, you're blown away because you got to walk through the Pyramid of Peace to get into the city in the first place. And this is a giant pyramid that has like VW logos all over it. And inside is a giant sun table that all the religions can come around and worship. And as I looked into their religious congress that they house there at the Pyramid of Peace, you'll find almost all of them are Muslim. Mm-hmm. And then they are trying to establish the first international money, or the one world money they call AK metal, which to me always sends me back to Mars Attacks. But then you've got your twin columns, the same thing that you would see inside of as you're walking into a Masonic lodge or King Solomon's temple, and this giant spire up in space that has a big orb up there where the architect has put his hand in a triangular piece of gold. And this is so reminiscent of Total Recall. I mean, we really are living in this sci-fi reality. So the main point being that these guys believe in ley line powers on the earth. They believe in setting up sigils as power structures. And so what we can start to witness now is where they're moving their selves to, and how they're adjusting these towns to fit their beliefs or their magical symbols.
Getting ready for a big event, looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It's been my understanding, and in being involved in this for about 30 years or so, but looking at this whole scene, what I've seen is that even on some of the pyramid walls, it shows this, and it shows the low-level stuff, and they look like greys and reptilians or demonic beings, and then they have, basically humans, your everyday human, and then they have kind of enlightened humans, and then above that they have the gods, in these paintings. And so when you look at this, you go, wait a second, now, and what I've seen, too, is when people are doing these rituals, they're trying to open gates or doors to these low-level beings, and whether they be, and the weirdest thing about it is some of these beings look just like greys and reptilians, which is everybody seems to be starting to experience and seeing around much of our world leadership.
Yeah, and I've taken that one more level, because it was my intention, before I'd ever even heard of like David Icke or anyone, was to show the merfolk of Atlantis, because these have been a creature that have been following me around in the storyline as well. Mm-hmm. And when you start to look to the ancient Egyptian Book of the Dead, to the papyri of Ani, and how they would lay these things out, they had the Ogdoad that were waiting back in the ranks after you were past Osiris. Once you made it through the gates and made it to the end, then you had a serpent and amphibian race. They called the Ogdoad, and one half was serpent, one half was merfolk or amphibian. Mm-hmm. And these were supposed to be the egg of the universe that spawned everything. Well, this is really amazing to me, because at 10 years old, I drew a picture, and it shows 4 flying space shuttles fighting a flying serpent in space. Mm-hmm. And at 10 years old, I had not an idea of any of this stuff. This was 1977. And I drew a symbol on each one of these space shuttles, and I remembered it clearly. Now, this was like a moment of remote viewing, of, uninitiated remote viewing. I was just drawing an artwork for a competition. And when I put the symbol on there, it really struck me as, I wanted to put something really cool, and it didn't come out as cool as I thought. It was kind of boring as far as I was concerned, but I drew it on all the space shuttles. Well, 18 years later, I'm reading the Sirius mystery, which is all on the Dogon tribe of Mali, Africa, that got their secret mythos from fish people from Sirius. Mm-hmm. And when I started to see the symbol that they had for the Sirius, it was the exact symbol that I put on all of the space shuttles. And this blew my mind, and it keeps coming up. And now I'm reading Laird Scranton's Secret Symbols of the Dogon and Secret Science of the Dogon, and we're finding out that they knew about string theory and quantum dynamics. And and this is a Aboriginal tribe that lives in mud huts.
Yeah.
And they also knew the orbiting factors of Sirius and Sirius B, and that